Okay, anyway, we're going to dissect strings, which is the same as dissecting a list because a string and lists are very much the same. So I'm going to create a new little file. I'm going to call it string dissection. And this is the simple part. We're not using anything very fancy in this particular case to dissect our strings. We need a message. And the message is going to be hello world. Now we did this Tuesday. And if we do first word equals, well, yeah. I don't know. I turn this thing off. Yeah, I know. I don't like that when I'm trying to talk about things. All right. So this takes hello world. And what does :5 do to hello world? What does it do to it? Why do we have :5? What does that mean? What's the term we use when we're using that operator, the colon operator? It actually is the something operator. The ring. Slice. We're slicing. We're getting out our Ginsu knives. This means when there's nothing there, it means we start from 0. And I like to put 0 in there, but not everybody does. I like to be explicit rather than implicit. Implicit means you should know that that's a 0. Explicit's better, I think. So we're going to take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, because this does what? It stops at 5. It does not get 5. And we end up with hello. Well, that's not going to be very useful to separate things if each one is going to be different. So for example, Bill Loring is different than Owen Osmera, which is different than Caleb Stewart. So we have to have some way to figure out, okay, what's going on in between those words? How can we separate them? And handily enough, oh, this one just does another one for index here. Okay, here it is. I'm jumping ahead to the split, which is really handy for that kind of thing. So we're going to do a sentence equals learning Python is fun, right? Yeah. So we're going to store words in a list. When we break this apart, we can store each word as a separate element or item in a list. So to do that, we use the split function. And I know this is a little bit interesting, but if you remember object-oriented programming, which I'm sure you do, this is an object. Split is a method for that object. Split has a parameter, which is, how do I split it? Well, we're going to split it with a space because consistently each word, there's a space between each word. Of course, if there's not a consistent space between there, a consistent delimiter is the term. Delimiter meaning you're saying what separates things, right? Caleb, Christy, Eliza? Yeah, okay. Right? So could we put other things in there?
Yep.
So for instance, if this had, one of the things that's very common when we use delimiters is comma. So sometimes we'll get comma delimited files, and each of these is going to be a field. Because a comma delimited file is the lowest common denominator to exchange things between database systems. Every system in the entire world and universe understands comma delimited files, and that's what they look like. They have a comma between each, what's the columns? Record. No, that record's this way. Fields.
So what the column for again?
It separates.
So when you're using that split, it splits that whole sentence into different parts of a list. So we're using that comma to split each word into a different item.
Well, let's print it out. So if we print it out, that'll make more sense. I don't need to see this anymore. I'm just going to comment that out of there. And there we go. There. So now we have a list, each word. Right? We use the comma to separate them. The comma here is just the structure of the list. You know, lists have comma between each element.
Okay, so don't you have to comma in the other one, like the sentence for? So what's that comma for?
I was talking about comma delimited files.
Yeah, so the comma over there, I'm kind of confused about that comma.
Well, let's start back at the beginning. This is the original. So unless you know the length of each word, how do we separate one word from the next? Like Owen, Osmera, Eliza, Lamian, Christy, Pendergraft. Each word has a different length, so we can't do 0:5 because they aren't 5 long. So how do we separate those? Say you get a database, and this is what they're doing right now with our colleague database. My sister does it all the time. Mike's been doing it for quite a bit at Century 21, splitting things apart, putting them back together so it fits the new system. My sister does this all the time. She works with several systems. They'll have different fields here in different order, and she has to get the information from here to here. So she has to take it apart and put it back together so it matches. Like the parts numbers over here may be 10, the parts numbers over here may be 15. And so she has to take them apart and put them back together. So what we're learning here is how to take a string apart based on something that's in common, that's consistent. So every word has a space between it. So if we split this at the spaces, we'll end up with a list that has each word in it as a separate item. And this is the syntax for a list. It has commas between each item. And they're strings, so they have a quotation mark around them. So it's a list of strings. But now we've separated them. And then we can take them and put them together in a different order. The next part I was mentioning is that it's not uncommon, and that's probably one of the biggest uses of the split, is a comma delimited file. So I'm going to look one up because I'm sure I have one somewhere, but I can't remember. So do an example of, let's use a Copilot. Copilot is my friend. There we go. Pilot. So I'm going to have Copilot give me an example of a comma delimited file. Please give me an example, an example of a comma delimited file. So what's a delimiter? Oh, tell us.
It's
Delimiter.
or the comma, that's good.
Yep. And what was it before?
Space.
Yep. So a delimiter means division. You're dividing things out. It's a consistent thing where we can split stuff. And that's what it's referred to as comma delimiter, meaning each field is separated by a comma. So let's come up with another example. Yep, it's known as a CSV file. Well, there it is. This is the simplest form of a database. Has everybody taken or is taking access? This is a database. Field names, records. And they're separated by commas. So it separates the values. Each line represents a row of data. Each value is separated by a comma. Yes? No? So if I copy this, well, I can only do one at a time with my current program. I can't do more than unless I get a little more complicated. But if I stick that in here, there we go. This is my record, and I want to separate it into 4 pieces. And now it's in 4 pieces. I have 4 separate strings rather than 1 string. we're not doing the entire thing today. We're just going through the splitting, which this is the dissection part. And you can split on anything that's consistent. The commas are the most common. You see commas all over the place. All right. So how can we put this back together? Now that I have it separated, how do I access an element of a list?
Index.
Exactamente. So if I do this, I get the last element, right? I'm pulling out Chicago. Because this will convert this into a list. And I can pull out Chicago because it's at the index 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, if I want to put all this back together again, I can say new sentence equals, and I could do this. Can I add strings together? That's weird, isn't it? Can I add strings together?
Yeah.
What's that called?
Concatenation.
Yeah, it's a weird term, but that is what it's called. That means that it puts it all together as a single string. So I've taken it apart into pieces. Now I'm putting it back together. And I can put it back together in any order that I want. I just put a couple together in a different order. There, now we'll take it apart. Take it apart, put it back together. Let's print the sentence too. The original string, right? This is a single object, it's a string. We use the comma to separate it out. And then I pick two pieces of it and put it in a different order. But to put it together in a different order or to add things into it or to change things, I have to take it apart first. So then I have separate elements to work with. Owen is available for tutoring. That's all I can say, because your eyes are telling me that it's maybe not quite there.
No, I understand what you did right now. I understand what you're doing right now.
Okay. But we don't typically do this when we're putting things together with strings. This works just fine and you do it, but the split method has the opposite method called join. So instead of doing it this way, we can say newer sentence. And we can put it together like this. So we do need to do a glue. So glue, I know is weird. And yeah, so we're gonna glue them together with a dash. You know, because we separated them, now we're gonna glue them back together. And our new sentence is going to be glue dot join words. Dot join, and what's our thing? New sentence, right? New sentence. And then we print our newer sentence. I was going from the list. Now we have an example here of taking apart a string and putting it back together in a different order. Let me find that guy. We'll go through that because this is just to kind of teach us the tools. Now we have a practical example, which is always good because you never know when you're going to have to take something apart and put it together in the right order. So let me find that little guy. It should be in here. Oh, there's nothing in there. What did I do with him? Where did he go? I know I had that file at some point. Huh.